Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are here with Wes Fenton of
Badland Outfitters,
the international boo-hurt fighter, and today we're going to talk about armor. The oldest human sport in human history is trying to stay alive while other people beat you to death. It's a fun way to say it, but that is very much true. If you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, a monkey picks up a bone, he creates a lever, and war was created. Animals wage war. We know that chimps wage war on one another. What human athleticism is originally for is for staying alive so you can procreate the next generation, if you want to say it that way. Armored combat, we know, has existed for at least 5,000 years. We're going to talk about boo-hurt armor and his armor loadout today. What is this helmet?
So this is a bastardized cross between a sugar loaf and I'd say a top helm. So unfortunately, this is my first helmet, and this is the helmet that I've used for the last 6 or 7 years. No longer authenticity approved, so I'm gonna have to get another helmet. But this thing is the most secure, breathable helmet that I've used up to this date.
Tell us what authenticity means, because authenticity is a big deal in boo-hurt.
So in boo-hurt and the armored combat community, every league has their own set of rules, and on top of safety, they have an authenticity committee. So you have to be within, I'd say, 200 to 500 years of when your armor was built according to the rest of your armor. And they have these degrees of authenticity. So if your armor is supposed to be a bassinet or a sugar loaf, it needs to look like a bassinet or a sugar loaf. If you have, articulating arms, but you have a 13th century kit, that's not going to be authenticity approved, because you have to have the floating hole and languettes kit, because they have to keep it to where when they're fighting, it looks like you're period correct.
Armor changes throughout history. The armor that boo-hurt is using is specifically various types of what you might think of as European armor. There's nobody rocking Japanese armor in boo-hurt, right? That's not authenticity approved.
So they have approved like a samurai style kit in a couple of leagues, but Battle of Nations, that's not going to get approved, because there's too many things you have to modify, because the Japanese and the samurai kits, it's mostly lightweight leather. Now, the way they modified that is they made it full steel kit. So everything that was leather, they replaced with steel, like the leather, the masks and the whole leather helmet, they made it full steel. So some leagues, they're totally cool with that. And those leagues, they have an awesome aesthetic. But the most historically accurate leagues, like Battle of Nations, the boo-hurt Champions League, those are gonna be your 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and sometimes 16th and 17th century armor. Specific.
Okay.
For European.
So let's go through, let's talk about maybe what's in that first century of available armor. What are your main pieces of kit?
So your 13th, 14th century armor,
Your 13th, 14th century, you're going all the way back to Robert the Bruce, right? 13th century starts in 1200. You're going to 1206, right? You're going Robert the Bruce time up. So you're talking about chainmail, coat of plates, and sugar loafs? What's in that one?
Sugar loaf, top helms, kind of this would be considered a late 13th, 14th century, before they started upgrading the style helmets. But you would have slat armor. So instead of full plates, they'd have leather with these strips of metal all in your arms and your legs.
Yeah.
There would be floating knees and floating elbows. There wouldn't be any articulating. And then your chest rig would be very basic.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of movement for the plates, but you would be less armored, so you'd have more mobility. Just you're kind of exposed.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk about that in a bunch of future videos, because I think that we can talk about that forever. Yeah. How much padding is inside of this thing? What did you use?
So this is traditional style padding. What they do is they take filler, your types of filler. What do they call this stuff?
It's basically wool and felt.
Yeah, wool, and then they make a cover for it, and then it is actually riveted into the helmet. And then you get your leather straps. So this is a two two-rig leather strapping kit. So one goes under your chin, one goes above your chin, much like you'd see on a modern football helmet, but they're one piece on a football helmet. This is two-piece.
Interesting. All right, let's grab another piece of armor and see what we got.
So this is your body chest rig. Both of these are titanium. So this is the one I use for pro fighting. It's got my team logo on it, which is Ordo Draconis, Order of the Dragon. If you know that history, that is Vlad the Impaler's sigil insignia. And these all have single articulating pieces of titanium all the way through them.
What's this outer, your cover here? This is a linen? What is this? What is this outer fabric that you're bolted to? You're riveted to?
Felt.
Some kind of felt?
It's a harder, like a tougher version of like the felt you would see like in a pool table or something like that.
But if you look at this is designed much like a modern sports shirt is. You have a front panel. These two panels here are underneath the arms like you would see in a jacket that's designed to lift your arms up all the way overhead. You have the central panel and your two side panels. If you were to design a super sexy jacket, it would have all of those same panels in it. These are just made out of metal.
And I believe this one is about 17, 18 pounds. This one being closer to 20. All right, so this piece right here is the sexiest piece of armor that I own, have seen. This is a very unique type of gorget. Now your gorget is your neck protection. And this is actually an articulated gorget and has full protection and layered protection. So when you get hit with it, it distributes the blow downwards across the other plates.
So the whole point of the most basic attack in human history, the most basic attack in all of human history is right hand down at a 45-degree angle. With a weapon or with a hand, with an axe or anything, this spot is super important to protect. Super important to protect. The more you get into levers, the more important that is because people are trying to take off your head, and right hand 45-degree down is in every martial art that's ever been done for a reason. When people get stressed out and they start to revert back to the lower levels of their brain, that is the strike that comes out the most. That relates into your athletic training. That's the importance of two-hand shield cast, single arm shield cast, mace 360 and mace 10-2, because it's the exact athletic motion of hitting this thing.
So before I got this piece of armor, I had a more or less an aluminum improvised gorget, and I went to the Dynamo Cup in Russia, which is the biggest tournament there is, was the biggest tournament there is. And I took a strike with a 8-pound pole arm. This is a halberd on a 7-foot shaft right here.
So a lot of force.
And it broke my clavicle, in half.
Yeah, important, armor.
Armor.
All right, what's next?
So these are also sexy greaves. Look at that curve on there. I did not make these. This was a kit built for somebody else that happened to just fit me perfectly. This kit right here goes over this right here.
Lowest part of your leg and wraps around the back of your leg so people aren't hacking at your Achilles tendon.
So this little tab right here holds on to your leg armor so this doesn't drop down onto your sabatons, crushing your feet, because that is something that happens. Armor bites is a real thing. If your armor doesn't fit correctly or if it doesn't have the right kind of support, you will get little bites, it scrapes, and sometimes it'll cut into you, and they call that armor bite. These are our fully articulated sabatons. So these go over your boot, strap in the back, and they have a little tie point right here, which these have been ripped out, but they go right there. And then when you're stomping around, these move with your foot.
That is so cool.
So the other thing you will have to cover is this. Authenticity Committee has this thing for shoes and your footwear. It has to be completely authenticity approved and correct, even though you can't really see them. So you have to have period correct. If you have anything that is rubber soled, it has to have no tread on it. Very basic, but really they like it to where you don't have any tread. It's just nails and the leather.
So famously, the Romans had hobnails. They had nails that actually came through the soles of their sandals to keep them fairly stable on dirt. The problem is the second you wear hobnails on a stone floor, if you were to enter a castle, you just biff it right away. So there's a lot of interesting considerations in how all of this stuff was done in history because they could not optimize for every environment back there. And the Authenticity Committee continues to make sure that you cannot optimize for every environment so that you move. Well, I mean, if you have to learn to use it the original way, it will change the way you move.
One of the things, we can't use any type of tape. Tape is obviously not going to be period correct, but they did have this sort of thing called tar tape back in the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries. And the closest thing to tar tape is this, your athletic tape. So we do kind of get away with that.
Boy, your legs are bigger than mine.
Yeah, I got big legs. And these are actually a little small for me.
Actually, they fit me.
Yeah, of course.
They actually fit my thighs. Thigh with a wrap-around piece outside of the knee, probably super vicious but very common strike. And that articulated knee that allows you to go all the way down. Sits on top of your greaves and they all connect together so they're all suspended from an upper belt system or a suspender system.
Upper belt system. And, the way they have these set up to where it's not just articulating this way, there are long holes for the rivets.
Oh, that allows you to flex laterally.
Sideways.
People who say the knee is just a hinge joint have never been off-road, right? It definitely does a bunch of other stuff, and it's supposed to. So your armor has to account for that.
In our sport, the back of the knees is actually an illegal spot to hit, but things happen. Like there is an intent behind it. So if you intend to hit somebody in the back of the knee, yeah, you're gonna get called for it. The guy's gonna be severely hurt. But accidents do happen. So you do have to have these. These little side pieces right here make it to where if somebody's straight on with you, they can't wrap around and hit you behind the knee.
Lateral collateral ligament.
This is probably the safest shoulder armor that allows the range of mobility that you want. So this armor right here, you're gonna want the larger side in the back to protect your shoulder blades. You put these on and you have all this mobility all the way around. Wow.
So you can still do all the most important movement. Armor wouldn't do you any good if you couldn't actually move in it.
And the armor surprisingly works really, really well. You can take a hit from a halberd and walk it off like it was nothing.
Oh my God, these things are amazing. Look at the range of movement on that. You can actually do a full shield cast in this.
Full shield cast.
Perfect. At some point, we'll actually have to have you train in armor.
Oh, absolutely. So if you want to see what it's, the aftermath of what it's like getting hit in armor, this is titanium. Look at the size of those dents. The arms is a prime target in this sport. So what are you going to do? You're holding the weapon, you want to immobilize and de-arm the person you're fighting.
It's called disarming for a reason. The word disarming is there for a reason. If they don't have arms, they can't swing weapons at you. Same thing is true, they teach you in modern gunfighting that people tend to get shot in the arms and in the hands because when people see a threat, they attack the threat. So instead of doing the perfect shooting that they're supposed to do, they just see a threat and they shoot at it. So people end up getting shot in the gun or in the hand holding a gun a lot.
Right. Articulated gauntlets. These are gonna need some work. I've ripped through these a few times.
Yeah, I see you, very important to have sewing skills if you were to work or wear knight's armor because you're gonna have to be able to do repairs on the fly. That means sewing needles, and in the modern context, that would be a lot of carpet thread. We should talk about armor repair kits at some point because this stuff is fascinating. All the tools that you would need to redo this stuff in order to reset rivets, in order to do basic things like reconnect all the leather.
Yeah, our team rolls
inside.
out with a full armor repair kit. We've got an anvil, full set of power tools to make things quicker, and sewing kits.
Nice. And this is even cooler. Look at this thing. So what's the difference between the
So
gauntlet with the flare and the gauntlet without? This keeps stuff from going up your arm.
Yeah, so this is more of your, so this allows you to articulate while still giving you the protection. And this whole kit right here is it's a European style, like.
Yeah, I see this a lot in museums, like the British Museum. Anytime you go to England, I go to look at armor, but I see a lot of this. I haven't seen this before.
This is a Mongol horde set of armor, so that's plated.
Plated gauntlets, but most important thing, if you don't have a handguard on your weapon, you want handguards. Once again, if you can't hold on to something, you can't do anything. So, gauntlets or basket hilts. Basket hilt was the adaptation for when they didn't want to wear gauntlets all the time. What do we got? What else we got over there?
Well, it would be the last one, most important piece of armor in your kit. It's codpiece. This has saved me so many times, cannot tell you. So you, by the rules, you have to have a codpiece or a cup. Most guys run like a sports cup, but this is armor. Why people run without steel over their nether regions is beyond me.
Right, so if you do any type of fighting sport, things you need a mouth guard so you don't lose your teeth. You need a cup because it sucks to get kicked in the nuts. And that goes back through all of human history. Is it Henry VIII, the guy who had all the most elaborate cod pieces
Henry
on it?
VIII and his grandson, or his son or his grandson. His son had over 40 sets of just extravagant, bizarre sets of armor, all with very strange cod pieces.
So the total weight on this kit, you said, is about 61 pounds?
63 pounds.
63 pounds. Is that including the helm or no?
It's including the helm.
That's including the helm. And so this is made out of titanium, not made out of normal steel, correct?
So the shoulders and the gorget are steel.
The shoulders and the
gauntlets
gorget are steel.
Everything else, because this is a high, it's a high probability you're going to get here.
So you want even more strength there, even more deadening power. Once again, 45-degree arc coming down, aiming at all of this stuff. The goal is to make sure that this is the strongest possible. And you're huge. You make me look small, which doesn't often happen. Normally, if you put me next to normal people, I look like a giant. I don't look like a giant next to you. So your kit is extremely large in size. There's a lot of metal inside of it. Yep. We'll come back and we'll talk about weapons that you use in different videos, because weapons are very specific. I like axes, you like axes. We talk a lot about axes. We'll talk about your competition axes. We'll talk about your shields, because I think your shields are fascinating. Your punch shields are fascinating. All of this information is useful because there is a weight that people have been trying to lift for all of human history. Somewhere in the range of 50 to 70 pounds is kind of a common weight of armor across cultures for most of human history, all the way back to ancient Greece, Japanese armor, Chinese armor, modern Buhurt armor. So the goal is to be able to learn to lift these types of weights better, longer. This is one of the reasons kettlebells are such a fascinating thing, because it is strength endurance. Because you deadlift 400 pounds does not really mean that you can run around in 61-pound armor for 10 minutes while people try to hit you with long sticks. Correct. Certain movements are important. The shield cast is important. The mace 360 is important. Think of shield like sword, think of mace like pole arm. The better you get at those movement patterns, the better your sport-specific conditioning for the most important sport in all of human history, which has been generally staying alive while people try to beat you to death with sticks.
War fighting.
Thanks, Wes. We'll do this again.